they shot him again, but apparently it's an absolutely perfect reenactment and rendition of the train. So those Civil War buffs or antiquity train lovers, it might be something good to do. There'll be some flyers up here available for you to see. Most importantly, for those of you who don't know, and even for those of you who do know, that need to be reminded, at the end of the evening, our helmet committee will be at the door with the helmets, eagerly accepting your gratuities to help us keep going. We appreciate it very much. We can make change for large bills if we need it. Charlie Lloyd, our headhunter, is away. He's become a snowbird. He's in Florida. He sent me a picture enviously this evening of him sitting on the beach. Not a pretty sight, but the beach is nice. Next month's speaker, Terry Hartzell, would you like to talk a little bit about next month's speaker? Sure. Well, he's on the web. I think we just found somebody great for the month afterwards, but we'll tell you about that later. Won't we? Wherever you are. Yeah.
Thank you, Kurt. I can't get that image of Charlie on the beach out of my head. I really appreciate that. Next month, we meet at the same date, the 7th of March. And it's a little departure. We don't have a veteran, but we do have a woman who helped with the war effort. Her name is May Cryer, and she was one of the Rosie the Riveters. She worked for 2 years at a Boeing aircraft factory in Seattle, Washington, and helped make the bombers that helped us win the war. And May is, I watched a YouTube of her, an interview with her. She's a very, very sprightly woman, and she's got some interesting stories to tell. So that's March 7th. A month from today, and we'll have other speakers. We'll tell you about those later. All right, Kurt.
Thanks, Kurt. Yeah, she's supposed to be really a hoot, so don't miss that one. And in fact, all you B-17 guys, you can thank people like her who put them together for you. So, but we're always looking for more speakers. So if you know anybody that you'd like to hear speak, or that would like to speak, we'd be more than welcome to hear about it. And what we do is we go out and we interview them and do a little arm twisting and a little prompting and get them to come. And it's what happened for our speaker tonight. A few months ago, some of us were invited to be in one of the local high schools, take a veteran to meet the kids and whatnot. And tonight's speaker was dragged in there to talk, and well, we glommed onto him in a heartbeat. And so he's going to be fun tonight. It's very interesting. It's quite a coincidence we have. I'm sure you read the press release. 2 guys who served on the USS Baton at totally different times, totally different ships, but the coincidence is it's the same name. But there are more coincidences, and I'll let them explain it to you. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce them. Bob Hench, Petty Officer 3rd Class on the aircraft carrier Baton, and Bruce Apgar, Commander retired Bruce Apgar, who was on another ship named Baton. He'll explain more about that. And he'll be doing the prompting of Bob. So Bob Hench and his henchman Bruce, come on up and say hello to everybody.
So yes, again, quite a series of coincidences, but in not that this is about me, but the story starts with a very interesting bit of trivia, because I was actually deployed in 2002 supporting troops in Afghanistan on the current USS Baton, and I got a note from a gentleman who heard about me through a hometown news release. Bob and I have the coincidence of both being from Carlisle, Pennsylvania, and oddly enough, both serving on a USS Baton in 2 different wars. And so while I was on that deployment, I got a note from Bob explaining why he had contacted me, and he knew that it was not the same ship, But we got to make friends with each other by a long distance. And when we came back from that deployment, I got a chance to meet him. And that was 17 years ago. So I'm really excited to be here tonight to help him share his story with you. But the first thing we want to do is, being both from Carlisle, I was interested in how Bob got his start and his decision to join the Navy. So Bob, would you give us just a little bit of a background on your decision to join the Navy?
Well, I graduated from high school in '42, and there was a group of us boys were talking one day in school, and Uncle Sam kept pointing at you, "We need you." And we got together and talked about it. We decided to join the Navy. And probably none of us had ever seen the ocean before. The only thing we'd seen was the Susquehanna and Quanticola and Leeward Spring. That was the extent of it.
Right, and so 5 of you and your friends joined the Navy, and that was actually a special day, not just for you, but for the country, because that was...
Well, yes. It was October 27th. It was Navy Day. And they made a big deal out of it. They had us on the Capitol steps and swore us in, and the Kiwanis had a big meal for us. And then from there we were shipped out in cattle cars. And finally we got to boot camp.
Right, and so when you left, you had that big Kiwanis dinner in Harrisburg, and then they put you on the trains to Philadelphia, and you had an interesting night in Philadelphia.
Well, yes, we stayed at the Seamen's Institute, which I don't know what it was, but it was loaded with bed bugs.
So his first night of liberty in the Navy left behind.
So the next day we were all bedded up.
That's right. And then, so from there, you got back on some trucks, and they took you to a different train depot, and you ended up at Bainbridge, Maryland. And Bainbridge, Maryland was where you had your accession or your boot camp training.
Well, yeah, we were the 25th company to open the boot camp, and it was nothing but mud. And we really had no training because there was no place to train. So we marched in the mud. And I guess whenever we went to the chow line, it was a fight between different barracks who could run the fastest.
And everything there was assembly line style. You have I'm going to take one quick side advertisement. A lot of this interview is actually possible because of an incredible journal that Bob kept during his service. You can see the cover of the book up here. It's called My Life in the Service. And he took meticulous notes from the time he left home until he got to the baton, and then through the baton's second combat deployment in here. And no, you may not come up and page through it. It's very delicate, and it's a treasure. But the notes we're taking are from here. Now, one of the things you talked about was assembly-style medical exams.
Right?
Assembly line of medical exams and shots.
Oh, yeah, well, that's something else. I think when they used us as dartboards. But we'd go through the line naked, and they'd check you all over and shoot you with these needles. You'd go to the next one, they would do something else, and you'd get another needle. And that's the way it was.
And uniform issue was a similar experience? Uniforms, when you got your uniforms?
Well, yeah, we went through the, I forget what they call it, where you get the clothing. But they handed out clothing, and, well, that's too big. Well, it'll shrink. So, it was quite an experience.
Right, and it never did shrink, did it?
No.
No, but you went in one end of the building in civilian clothes, and by the time you came out, you had a full outfit of uniforms.
Oh, yes.
Right, and so you spent basically through the end of December there at Bainbridge, Maryland at boot camp.
Mm-hmm.
And the next stage of your career was your technical training, which took place where?
Well, you mean when we went to aviation machinist school?
Yes. So Jacksonville. So, Jacksonville. So in Jacksonville, you went to aviation machinist school.
Yeah, well, we went for boot camp to Jacksonville, Florida. We were there probably, I imagine, 6-8 weeks
Right.
for training. And we were trained to work with every part of the aircraft at that time. And then we graduated, and we were supposed to be out petty officers when we graduated, but they froze the ranks in the Navy at that time. It was filled up, and it was disappointing. But well, we got through it. And then from there, I went down to Lee Field around St. Augustine, and I was there for a while, maybe a couple of weeks. And it was only a holding area.
Was this where you had your experience helping direct aircraft out on the runway?
You know, I don't know if it was there at Quonset Point.
Okay. Well, let's continue on to Quonset Point.
Yeah. Well, anyway, where was it?
Head to Quonset Point.
I went from Lee Field to Quonset Point, and that was another holding area. And then from Quonset Point, I was only there a couple of weeks, and then they transferred us back to Philadelphia, and we were assigned to Bataan.
Right. Now, you told me you actually worked on the aircraft while you were at Quonset Point, but you actually got some machines.
Well, yes. At both airfields, we worked on aircraft.
But at one of them, I thought you had an experience where you got to work on the runway for a while.
Oh, yeah. Well, they put two of us enlisted men out on the runway, and we were supposed to fly the planes in like the carrier does. Well, we were underground laughing more than we were flying it in. Yeah, that was a good experience.
All right. And then we had, as you said, back to the USS Bataan, or actually for the first time for you, to the USS Bataan. And the picture that you see up on the screen is the cover of the cruise book, the war cruise book that the USS Bataan crew put together at the end of the war. So Bob, what were your impressions when you arrived at the Bataan?
What? You mean my job?
Well, no, your impressions of the shipyard and the ship and that whole arrival.
Well, we went on a shakedown cruise in the Atlantic.
Right, and before you went on the shakedown cruise, you get to the ship, impressions about the size of the ship, the size of the crew. Do you have any recollections that you wanted to share?
Well, when I got on board the ship, to me it was so large that you got lost. I mean, you go to the chow hall and you wound up in the officer's mess.
That's right. So a very large ship, but a lot of capability.
Well, we had about, I'd say around 1,650 people in it.
Right, sailors, 1,650 ship's company sailors, before the air wing even got
Oh
there.
yeah, well the air wing was different.
Right, and the air wing would bring another 800 once you finally got
And
there.
then they were just assigned to the ship.
Right.
And, but we went on the shakedown cruise then, and we were on submarine patrol when we were out there, which was a big threat at that time. And I forget what else I was going to tell you now. Oh, yeah, coming back, we went through a hurricane off of Cape Hatteras, and that buckled our ship. And we had to go into dry dock for about 2 weeks
Right.
to get that straightened out. And it was never straightened out because we had trouble with the elevator that took the planes down to the hangar deck. We had trouble with that off and on. And
Right, now this next photograph that's coming up shows an interesting event in Bataan's life. Can you describe that?
well, we were all lined up in the flight deck with our dress blues on. And you went through a lot of speeches, you know, and we had the president from the Philippines on board, and his daughter, which wasn't bad looking.
They hadn't even been to sea yet.
But it really was exciting.
Right, so being on the ship when it's launched like that gives you a unique distinction or a unique title called plank owner.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Go ahead.
with the plank, when you're on for the christening and you're on for the long haul, you're a plank owner, which I guess gives me the title to be an owner on that ship.
That's right. So the Navy tradition is the commissioning crew of a ship becomes a plank owner, and when the ship is broken up, they're entitled to a plank from that ship. Another coincidence, on the USS Baton where I served, we had a pallet load of planks of the flight deck planking from CVL 29. So we were able to bring one of these back for Bob after that combat deployment. So this is Bob's official plank for being a plank owner on USS Baton.
Yeah, they gave me a damage, but that's where it developed.
This one has some experience. All right, so we'll probably hear more about that elevator damage in the hurricane a little bit later on, I bet. But after that, now this is a picture of Bob's division, the V1 division. He was part of the aviation department. And right there where the yellow circle pops up, we got the magnifying glass out and we verified that is Bob in his divisional photo there. And then shakedown cruise was over, we did some carrier qualifications and headed for the Panama Canal.
Yeah, we went through the Panama Canal, and that was quite an experience. With our ship, we had 4, you would call them chimneys, but they're funnels.
Right.
And it stuck out there on the side. It was a garbage ship, really. But
Going through the canal.
where was
You were going through the canal.
Going through the Panama Canal, yeah. Well, they had to change the ballast of our ship so it would tilt to go through the locks.
Right.
So that was quite an experience.
And then from there to San Diego, and in San Diego you basically...
Well, we went to San Diego from there, and we loaded up with planes, springs, all kinds of equipment. And then we took that over to Pearl Harbor.
Right.
And
then when you got to, excuse me, Pearl Harbor, you did get a little Liberty, that's a Liberty in Honolulu slide.
oh yeah, we had Liberty, yeah. Oh, we had good duty for a couple of weeks there. We'd break in squadrons. We'd go out for 3 days, break them in, then come in, we'd have Liberty for 3 days.
Right, well, one of the hardest military feats there is landing an aircraft on a very small flight deck out in the ocean. So they would have a carrier assigned for deck landing qualifications, and Baton was blessed with that opportunity for a couple of weeks. But at this point now, we're going to push pause on the interview because Bob has, well, and actually, Bob, would you explain your different brothers' service?
Well, I'm sorry I never asked him about his service. I'd love to know. But I had a brother that was in the Army, and he was over in Europe. He was over there before I joined the Navy. And then I had another brother that was on an LST landing ship. And he was in Europe. And when that war was over, he came over into the Pacific.
Right, and then your brother Bill served after the war in the Navy.
Well, yeah, I had 2 brothers after the war that Bill served in the Navy. And he was on about 3 different carriers. And my brother Jack was in the paratroopers. Right,
and so what we have next is, there's a letter here that Bob captured to his brother Harold, who was in the infantry, the story of the first combat deployment of the Baton.
Yeah, this was on the first cruise that we were out in the Pacific. But remember this was an 18-year-old boy right this. And I might have sold some Marines out there. I am writing this just as I remember it. and I won't put down any dates on it for safety's sake. It was cold when we left Philadelphia and headed for the open seas. After traveling for a week or so, we discovered we were ready to go through the Panama Canal. It took us about 6 to 8 hours, but it certainly was interesting to see how the gates work. After reaching the Pacific side, we docked at Panama City, port section that had liberty. Lucky I was in the port section because starboard was hosed out of liberty. We had 3 or 4 hours of liberty, and in that time I had a lot of fun in groups like Panama. The next day we shoved off for San Diego, but I didn't enjoy my liberty there. They were too strict on the uniforms, and they had signs in the yards, dogs and sailors keep off the lawn. We stayed for 3 days loading up the trucks, tractors, and all kinds of equipment, plus several divisions of Marines. We then left for Pearl Harbor. On the way, we hit choppy weather, and I never did see such a sick gang of men as those landlubbers, Marines. After 4 or 5 days, we hit Pearl Harbor and unloaded our supplies and 50-some planes we had brought over. Then we qualified new pilots for a couple days. Had a few crashes, but nothing serious. I had a fairly good time in Honolulu. We left Pearl Harbor after a week there and headed for the real thing. On Easter, we pulled into the Marshalls. Never have I seen so many ships at one spot. There were at least 200 aboard. Now this was the whole task force that we had there, all 4 units. And it was amazing, the ships that we had out there.
Right.
We were assigned to Task Force 58, Unit 1. The forces divided into 4 units with carriers, battleships, cruisers, and destroyers. In our unit are 2 first-line carriers, 2 CVOs like I was one, plus cruisers and plenty of destroyers. We are now headed for our first mission in enemy waters, and the whole crew is sort of thrilled about it. The morning is here to strike, and we're all excited and have a funny feeling. The morning is here, and we got up at 3 a.m., all set to go, but it rained, and rained. The pilots were sort of nervous, but who would be on their first mission? About 6 a.m., our planes took off for New Guinea and hit 4 Jap aerodromes. The base was, I guess that's how you pronounce it, Landia and Wake. It was surprising how little trouble the Japs gave us. We caught them eating breakfast and some with their pants down. We bombed for a few days, then covered General MacArthur's invasion forces. We then left for Trump. However, we were called back to bomb the Japs again because Mac had run into some trouble. We shut down one plane at New Guinea and thought we were big deals. We then headed for Trump, bombed it, and from there we went to Pohnpei and bombed and shelled in. We shot down another plane, this time over Trump. Now we really were big shots. Next we headed for our meeting spot, and from there we were sent to Pearl Harbor. Our elevator could be fixed only temporarily. Soon we headed for our next objective. By this time we were veterans. The Admiral called us in, so we acted it. Guam and Rodo were our next objectives. We bombed them for a few days, also Saipan. Our next move was toward the Bonin Islands, just 575 miles from Guam, from Tokyo. We hit Chickajima in the Bonins, and then headed back to the Philippines and Guam, and headed out to find them. For a couple of days we hunted and sent out planes out, but no luck. That night we contacted them, but they were 500 miles away. We were between them and Guam. This morning we kept getting attacks of 60 Jap planes. Our fighters would go up and intercept them. That day we knocked them down right and left. A couple of Beetles, Jap torpedo planes, slipped through. I stood on the flight deck watching them come in, and I found a place to hide. A destroyer knocked them down, our cruisers cut loose, the shells from the Mortimer were bursting over us, and shrapnel fell all around. I got scared when that happened, and I done something. I hid someplace.
One cloud of dust up the flight deck, yes. Made me dive under the bridge.
Yeah, but I don't know how that happened because I was at the other end of the ship. Somehow I got that mixed up. Anyway, Admiral Gutcher, Task Force Commander, knew the Jap planes couldn't make it back to their carriers and figured they were going to land at Guam. He sent their planes over to bomb the airstrips. When the Japs got there to land, they were just a gasless, hopeless bunch of pilots. Our men shot them down like flies. The whole task force accounted for 400 planes that day. Our ship got 26 of that number. The Admiral sent us his congratulations. The next day we were out to contact Jap fleet again, but it wasn't until late afternoon that we sent all our planes to bomb it. The Japs were helpless as far as their carriers went because they had no planes left on board to send up. We did quite a bit of damage. Our planes came back about 8 or 9 o'clock, and that's what was called the Great Turkey Shoot. Oh, okay, I lost my planes. Our planes were crashing all around us and running out of gas. I was so scared I had tears in my eyes, not for me, but for the pilots that went down in the water in the dark. The planes got the landing circle and we were all set to land them. The first one, a helldiver, came in, just missing the island. My heart was in my mouth. The next one landed but crashed into the barriers. We got it out of the way and fixed the barriers. Then another Hellcat tore down both barriers. The skipper refused to land anymore until they were repaired. Our other carriers had landed all they could and then some. They would land planes and then throw their planes over the side once the pilot and the gunner were out. The Belle of Wood had quite a fire on her, by the looks of things. We finished that night and went to bed unhappy. Yet we were happy too because we had knocked down so many planes. During the landing operations, the water was just covered with lights from pilots floating in the water that had run out of gas or could land on any carriers. Next morning, we sent planes out for the men who had been picked up that night. Also, several planes went out to finish off the ships that we had just crippled. When our pilots got there, all they could see for miles around was oil. The Japs must have sunk the crippled ships and headed for Tokyo. The Japs celebrated a big victory, according to Tokyo roads. The next time, we headed for the Moda Islands again, hitting Chikajima, Iwo Jima, Hawajima. Tojo's landlighters hunted us all one night. They came very close. Believe it or me, we were all praying. And if you didn't believe in prayer that night, you never would. The way they do it was drop the flares. After that, they come in and bomb us as though it were daylight. Well, with those flares, they're so brilliant, you can't see. It's brighter than daylight when they drop them. And they drop confetti throws your radar off. So we had no radar, and that was a bad night. After that, they come in, and Bob us to throw it daily. We can't see them because of the flares. It happened to be, I happened to be on watch that night. You had just secured after responding our planes after the flight deck. Mr. Green sent me down to the fourth deck to get a plane captain. I had just went down there when the general alarm sounded. Whatever that thing sounds, you run if you're naked or what? Well, anyway, I started up the ladder 3 steps at a time. My knees were knocking and I was out of breath. I wondered what was going on. Then I saw the planes and I knew that, I don't know where I am. The next day we headed back for Guam. Oh yes, we did shoot down some 20 more planes. That makes our total about 61. We bombed Pagan, Saipan Islands too. For 7 days we bombed Guam and headed for Pearl Harbor where we are now. We hope to go back to the States from there. We'll know in a few days. We had some liberty at Inuit Talk and in Kwajalein. It was lots of fun. Well, what it was a small island. There was no leaves or anything on the palm trees. It was all bombed out. But they gave everybody, I think, 2 or 3 cans of beer and a pack of cigarettes. You could get any amount of money for those beers. We raised 5 Bronze Stars on our Asiatic campaign ribbon. That's the Pacific. 1 for landing in New Guinea, 1 for Truk, and for the sea and air battle with the Jap fleet. 1 for Saipan and Guam, and 1 for Chickajima, Iwo Jima, Ho Jima, and the Bonin Islands. Then this is a letter that I had sent to my brother that was over in Europe. So, and we did get back to the States. We were in dry dock for a month, having our elevator repaired and other repairs. Then we went back out again.
Right, so that damage that you got during a shakedown cruise to your elevator actually got you back to Pearl Harbor twice and got you to San Francisco eventually. So all things work for good. So we're going to catch a couple of slides here that will get us caught up on the pictures. Now this first one was at a special ceremony where you got to meet Neptunus Rex, the king of the briny deep.
Yeah, that's when we went over the equator. They always have a big time over the equator. And we had King Neptune, Davy Jones. He had to kiss the belly of King Neptune. Then when you went through a gauntlet, they had hoses and all kinds of paddles that you went through. That was a fun celebration to get away from the war.
We had a little quick break and an R&R while you're out at sea, and then you got to be called a shellback.
Oh yeah, you were a shellback. You weren't a pollywog anymore.
Right. Now this is the scene you talked about joining the first team at Majuro. Now this is where another coincidence or two takes place, because I found out when I was on the baton in supporting Afghanistan operations, we were part of Task Force 58. Well, when Bob was on the baton, they were also assigned to Task Force 58 there at Majuro, so 2 different wars, same task force. Last week, when I was sitting talking with Bob, I was looking through the cruise book, and not only were we in Task Force 58, but the Admiral of Task Force 58, when Bob was assigned, was Admiral Jocko Clark. Admiral Jocko Clark is the admiral that my first ship, the USS Clark, was named after. So we just keep finding a lot of coincidences where our careers intersect 40 or 50 years apart. So you got Oh, you got back to San Francisco and they finally fixed that elevator. And then headed back out for round 2 of the war.
Yeah.
What I would like to do now remember, Bob went to school as an aviation machinist mate, but he actually wasn't assigned to the aircraft maintenance division. You were assigned to the landing signals.
Yeah.
So can you describe your duties working landing signals?
Well, yeah, with landing signal, you've seen, well, there's a picture out there of it. There was 3 of us worked with him, and the one kept the flight deck clear because his back is to the flight deck. So you had to have a man let him know that it was clear to land the plane. And then the other one had binoculars, and he would check all the planes that was in the landing circle to make sure the hook was down, wheels down, the flaps. He'd give him the signal that it was all right to bring them in. And then at that time, I was on the phones with the air officer. And that was exciting. Between the landing signal officer and the air officer, you got into some mouth fights.
Yeah. And then when you were on that sound-powered phone, you got some interesting conversations?
Oh, yes. And I repeated just the way they told me.
That's right. The phone talker's job is verbatim repeat back. Now, in the picture that we see up there, the 3 enlisted men in the red shirts there, Bob is the center one with the headset on. So that is him on the flight deck over there. And you'll notice different colored shirts on different people. The 2 folks standing up with the khaki trousers are officers. But what was the purpose of the different colored shirts, Bob?
Well, on the flight deck, you had men that would push a plane around, once they come in, then push them up to the elevator to take them down to the hangar deck. And you had blue shirts, they did another job. You had yellow shirts, which was landing signal officer. And we had the red shirts that we were working
Right.
landing signal.
And so you never did make great as an aviation machinist. What happened where you finally became a petty officer?
Well, I kept taking tests for the doggone job. And the officer that was in charge of rates ran the catapult. Well, the catapult men always got rates, the rest of us didn't. So my landing signal officer said, "I'm tired of this." He said, "You've been taking that test a long time." He said, "We're going to get a rate." So somehow he got me a metalsmith rate, which I didn't know a thing about metalsmith.
But that got you your metalsmith 3rd class, and you were a petty officer in the Navy then, which you'd been due since Jacksonville.
Do what?
You had been due for that promotion since Jacksonville.
Oh, yeah.
All right, now you got to see exciting things up on the flight deck too. Some landings went better than others.
Oh, yeah. Well, you had quite a few crashes on deck, and from being on a carrier, that ship is pitched and rolling, So they were coming in for a perfect landing. So once the ship would make a dip, and they'd fly right into the crash barrier. Or the ship would roll, and they'd come down hard, and the landing gears would just fly off.
Right, and I had a skipper one time who was an A7 pilot, and he told me, he said, "Gator, anytime you can walk away from it, it's a good landing." Which I thought was him being clever, but if you can't read the caption up there, it actually says, "A good landing, the pilot walked away." So, again, any landing you can walk away from is a good landing. So, we left the baton in San Francisco, and you headed back to Pearl. When you got back to Pearl, you spent about a month there doing a special type of qualification with the pilots.
Yes, they put night landing lights on our ship, and I think we were one of the first ships to have it. And we'd break in landings at night. We'd go out for 3 days, land planes at night. Then, well, during the day, they landed also.
Right, and
But
so,
mostly at night. And, that was good duty. We had 3 days out, 3 days in. And I don't know how long we were there, probably a month or so.
yeah, about 25 days, I think, by the calendar in there. And then you headed back out to join Halsey's fleet.
Oh, yeah.
What happened once you got to Halsey's fleet?
Well, he was a crazy man. Man, you were in trouble. You didn't go away from trouble, you wanted it.
And you told me all we did was fight. Once we got up with Halsey, all we did was fight. So when you had your life on the ship basically rotated around what 3 basic chores that you did?
Well, once in a while I'd get guard duty at night.
Right.
And that was boring. I mean, all you did was walk around the flight deck. But are you getting it?
I was getting at what eat, sleep, work. So your daily, what was your daily cycle like?
Well, the daily cycle, we were on call 24 hours a day. And you'd go down to your compartment where you slept, which had about 40 men in it. And you'd go down there, and you weren't down there until general quarters would sound. You'd come up to your battle station, and that was the routine.
In chow hall.
Well, yeah, well, you always have that. And another thing, when we took on supplies from the freighter deck, they'd come up alongside while we were underway. You had a line to pass the food along, Well, down, we were the 4th deck down, and there was a storage room. I don't know how big it was. But anyway, in the line to pass the food to the next guy, we had a line running down to our compartment. Every so often, something would come down.
And you told me from your position, because all of your duty time was spent up on the flight deck, you got to see pretty much everything when the battles were going.
I've seen everything that ever happened.
And so you told me a little bit about when you saw the Franklin take her hits.
That was one of the worst fires I've seen. A carrier fire was bad because you had all that gasoline on plus ammunition. And when you have a fire on a carrier, it's a major one.
And what was it that hit the Franklin? What was it that actually hit the Franklin?
It was a bomb. The elevator was down in the hangar deck. And when this kamikaze came over, he dropped his bomb, and it went down the elevator shaft to the 4th deck when it blew up. And or you couldn't see much for smoke. But guys were jumping overboard, and it was terrible. And then our pilot was on the
He was on the catapult.
catapult. Yeah. Our pilot was on the catapult. They shot him off, and he burned out all his guns. And he went through all that flak, but he burned out all his guns on the chap, and he got him.
Right. And then on the 20th, Bataan was the focus of several attacks. So according to the cruise book, lots of planes were attacking the Bataan. But while that was going on, you also saw the Enterprise get
Yeah, the
hit.
Big E. We always called it the Big E. But when that jam hit, the kamikaze, the elevator blew off and landed out between different ships. But we passed him, and there was 2 guys standing on that elevator hitchhiking.
Now, I don't know if you can see the green dot, but this is the piece of the elevator that flew off up into the air. And then, as Bob said, even in the midst of war, there are humorous situations. And so these are the 2 gentlemen he's talking about that were hitching a ride trying to get picked up by one of the passing destroyers. And right now, we're actually in the March-April 1945 timeframe when they rejoined Halsey's fleet out there. One of the big actions that the ship was involved in was helping to sink the Japanese battleship Yamato. Baton's planes were credited for 4 torpedo hits and about 50% of the sinking of the USS Yamato. I'm sorry, INS Yamato, thank you. Yes, INS Yamato. And they weren't happy about it apparently because the next day, Baton again comes under heavy attack. And Bob, we want to bring this next photo. Under heavy attack so much that even their gun tubs were getting damaged by the bombs going off around the ship. But in the closest action you had, can you tell us about the day that the plane crashed nearby?
Oh, well, my battle station is back at I'll put it this way, the right hand of the ship in back.
The port quarter.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And we were under attack, I don't know how many planes that day, but it was terrible. But I see this jam coming in towards the bridge, and we kept watching. Once he made a dive for us. But the only thing that saved me, the captain, when he was coming down at us, put the ship in a turn. And that ship was sliding around, and this jam went down and crashed. Yeah, there's a picture of it. I'm in that smoke. That's how close I was.
So again, this right here, he's got an arrow pointing. This was his station on the ship.
But anyway, I was so scared. I seen it all happen, but I never heard a thing. And to this day, I think I seen the pilot from his waist up go up whenever that plane flew up.
All right, so and we're going to keep moving a little bit, so there's time for a couple of questions here. But you remember VJ Day?
Well, yes, I do. I mean, we were happy when it happened, naturally, but we had our planes already up in the air to strike, and they were told to hold their fire. And then we got the word that the war was over. They jettisoned their bombs and stuff before they could land.
Right.
So yeah, that was an exciting day. We knew we were going home.
Knew you were going home, but before you went home, you got to make an interesting stop. After the treaty was signed, where did you end up?
Oh, in Tokyo Bay.
All right.
Yeah, we were in Tokyo Bay.
So he was in Tokyo Bay with the task force, where 4 days prior they had signed the Articles of Surrender. And eventually on his way home, and in fact in the cruise book it just says spam, spam, spam. I think they must have run out of fresh fruit and vegetables by that time in the war. Now, I tried to piece together some of the battle record of Bataan. Best estimate I can come up with paging through the cruise book was the ship probably had credit for about 100 aircraft shot down, and several dozen Japanese ships either sunk or damaged to the point of needing to be sunk.
The internet says 137.
Oh, does it? Yeah. Oh, I didn't look there. I looked through the whole cruise book and I didn't check the dinghy. So 137 aircraft shot down plus a couple of dozen ships. So, and you can see the big ones here, but there's a list in the back of the cruise book of some of the other ships that they were credited with. But the Yamato and the Nagata were both battleships. The Hui, I can't even say. Yuga is an aircraft carrier, and the Tone and the Akoma were cruisers. I think the other two were destroyers. But there were some other credits in the back of the cruise book for them. Thank you for pointing that out. So yes, a big meal to celebrate going home. here in Bob's house are his own personal decorations. And Bob earned the American Theater Campaign Medal, the Asiatic Pacific Campaign Medal with 5 stars, the China Service Medal, the World War II Victory Medal, the Navy Occupation Service Medal. But there's one other medal that probably should have been on the list, but you didn't know about it until after you had gotten home from the war. Can you tell us a little bit about that little medical thing?
Oh, well, for that plane that went down where I was in the smoke, I had a piece of shrapnel in the lip and never knew it. And after I got married, my lips swelled up real big, not from my wife. My lips swollen up real big, and I went to a surgeon, and he cut it out. He said, "Well, that's shrapnel." So I could have had the Purple Heart those 2 go together.
All right, so thank you, Bob, for a really engaging conversation. We have time to take a couple of questions.
Before we do, we have to go through another ceremony for Bob, because it gets a little hectic after the question and answers. So we'll do that right now, if you don't mind.
You do not have to kiss Kirk's belly, by the way.
We like to reward our speakers with a highly coveted trophy. You got one when you spoke to us.
I have one, yes, thank you.
And Bob, I hope you put that to good use.
Oh, I will. Thank you.
But wait, there's more. As seen on TV. For both of you, as a commemoration of this event, we have a copy of the press release.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. And for Bruce, when we have somebody for the second time, there's an addendum to the mug that you'll get, which is our privilege to put your mug on.
Well, that'll be on my desk
And of
tomorrow
course,
morning.
you get one of those as well.
Excellent.
So, everybody, thank you both for working together.
Remember, Bob worked on the flight deck, so he doesn't know what happened in the operations cell, the schedules, the plans, or in many cases, the names of the battles. So keep that in mind as you frame your questions.
I got the mic, so I get the first question. You give me next question. Bob, I think I recall you telling me that you were on watch one night, and you saw something interesting coming toward you?
Oh, yeah. I was on watch that night on the flight deck, and it was a dark night, but I was just moseying around on the flight deck, and I seen this shadow coming towards us, and I kept looking. Here was a carrier coming to broadside us. And if I'm not mistaken, it was a Bucks Hill. And I yelled over the phones. Well, they seen it at the bridge at the same time. So that was a scary night. And we both, somebody zigged when they should have zagged. And when we made a turn, our fantails just came together a little touchy.
So how many people you know has ever saved an aircraft carrier?
Next day our dad would be in was transferred.
Well, Christian.
Hi, thank you for your service, sir. We appreciate it. Just 2 quick questions, really. In terms of the stats on the aircraft shot down, would you attribute that? Are you dividing that to what was shot down from?
You after I can't hear.
I'm sorry. I'm asking that those ratios of kill ratios that are attributed to the ship, were they mostly air to air, or was that also from the ship shooting the planes down?
I'm sorry, I can't
The ship itself is accredited with 6 to 8 gun engagement kills. 6 to 8 gun engagement kills and about 12 assists.
Oh, great. So the other question is,
That's from the anti-aircraft guns on the ship.
the other, just that I don't think a lot of people know the significance of truck. And it is a very poignant moment in the war. I wondered if you could just elaborate on that for these folks.
Well, actually, we're really not prepared to at the moment. So, sorry, I can't really address that
Well,
one.
that was our return fire against Pearl Harbor. For those that don't know, we caught the Japanese Navy at Truck Lagoon and we sank virtually all of it. And it was revenge. And it was well suited.
Somebody got a hand up. You were on duty one time and you saw an airplane up there that nobody else had seen, did you? Wasn't it, you were telling me that you gave the binoculars to the officer, and sure enough?
Oh, geez, there was so much happened.
Okay,
Yeah, offhand, I can't think of
okay,
it.
okay. Tom?
I don't know. What type of aircraft operated off your carrier? And did you have any aces?
What type of planes flew off?
What kind of planes? F-6s, the Hellcat, and Corsairs. In the beginnings, we had 4Fs, the Grumman fighter. What were they called now?
Wildcats. And then the Corsairs when the Marines were on board, and then the
Yeah,
Hellcats.
the Marines flew the Corsairs.
And yes, they did have several aces. There's actually an aces recognition party listed in the cruise book.
Yeah, if you go to the internet and just look up Baton, it's an amazing, amazing story. What you heard tonight is just a little vignette out of the mouths of the guy who was there. You never read about this in a history book, but this, I can't get over how many thousands of miles this ship rode in the Pacific, going from place to place to place, from engagement to engagement. It's just incredible. It would go 30 knots, 35 miles an hour. So it really cut through a lot of water.
And it was on a cycle where it was about 90 to 120 days on station. And then they had about 30 days to refit, refresh, maybe have a couple of beers on the bombed out island. And then right back into the thick of things again for another 90 to 120 days. And they did 3 cycles of that. And from the time they got there, and they arrived there at the end of 1944, like September of 1944, and they did 3 of those cycles before the war ended.
So it's got a tremendous, tremendous record, if you can imagine. So any more questions for Bob? Obviously, you did a good job.
All right.
Thank you all for coming. I hope you come next month. Same date of the month. And bring a friend with you.
Right, and we'll put the plank down here if you'd like to come touch a piece of the battle, but I'm sorry, the books are really fragile, so we're going to keep them up here.